A lot of people, when we do our good morning walks, by the way, every Saturday morning, around about 8 o'clock, depending on what time my alarm wakes me up. Sometimes it's very hard to get up in these cold winter mornings. It really is. But yes, people often ask me, what should Labour do? And I have to say, this is a really hard question. It really is. Because there is an opportunity here for Keir Starmer. And that is to put forward his version of Britain, what it can be, and what the Labour Party intends to do. And that means putting forward policies. Because at the moment, as we've often said, Brexit is policyless. We can't really talk or speculate about what Brexit's going to do because even the Tories, and I highly suspect there is a reason to this, they are not saying what they intend to do for the future. Partly because if they actually reveal what policies they want to do post-Brexit, the chances are a lot of people are going to sour on Brexit and what it actually means for them very, very quickly. And trust me, I think next year we are going to see that. We are going to see that 100%. And this is the criticism you've heard of Keir Starmer. And I think this is both valid and somewhat can be explained away in equal sense. It's a bit hard, but we've gone over it before. And that Starmer must put forward some policies for what he wants for a future. And the one school of thought is it has to, because we want to know what Starmer is. What does he stand for? What does the Labour Party under him mean? What does he want to do and accomplish if it gets into government? On the other hand, you've got the other party side of it who says he can't do any of that yet because we don't know what the future of the UK is going to be under Brexit. We know it could be potentially incredibly bad, and the problem is if he does put out any policies, those policies might have to significantly change to adjust to the realities of what the UK has become. So there are positives and negatives to him doing that, but he has to do something. This is what we're going to get into today on this article. And that is that Labour must seize the initiative and help to decide what happens next beyond Brexit, because the Tories aren't doing that. So before we get into that article, please do visit my Patreon down below and consider becoming my Patreon. And of course, there is a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee where you can buy me a coffee. So thank you very much to the people who do support me that way. Your support is very much appreciated. So on into the article. So this comes from The Guardian and its title is Labour shouldn't fall out over Brexit. It ought to focus on what happens next. In fact, this was written by Peter Mandelson as well. So, in fact, yeah, Peter Mandelson, just to remind you of those who don't know who he was, he's a former cabinet minister and EU commissioner. So, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to a lot of these things. So, very interesting. But also, he's going to talk to you about how Labour ought to vote on Brexit. And again, that is another interesting question in itself. How should Labour vote? And I don't know, but we'll have to see. So anyway, into the article. Labour's decision on how to vote on a Brexit trade deal with the EU. And we must assume that not even this ideologically fixated Prime Minister would put a few trawlers full of British fish before the interests of the entire UK economy, looks to reopen old arguments and old wounds it shouldn't. What is at stake for the party is not big enough to warrant a fresh Brexit disagreement. Whereas what is riding on a deal, however limited, and where the country goes next are huge. In determining that Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and its different category should not only leave the EU, but additionally languish outside Europe's giant single market and its frictionless custom union, Boris Johnson is putting Britain at a massive and permanent disadvantage in relation to its biggest export market. All the new benefits from every global trade deal we could ever aspire to will not begin to equal the size of our present European trade. This is the price we will pay for that triumph of the hardline Tory Brexiteers over those with a stronger sense of national self-interest in their party. It is also the price the rest of us will have to pay in the pro-EU camp will pay for having to try in the years following of 2016 to try and reverse the referendum decision rather than achieve at least the least damaging form of Brexit. As someone who is firmly in the reverse camp, I played my part in this outcome. Yet, if I could turn back the clock, I have little doubt I would do the same again. In such a narrow referendum result, and on an issue of such fundamental national importance, holding a second referendum on the terms of our Brexit departure, with all the hard facts available, was the right thing to campaign for. But while the People's Vote campaigners came down in favour of passing Theresa May's outlined deal and attaching a referendum to it, we did so too late. Without much enthusiasm, and having spent all that time leading up to the moment arguing against her deal, we damned it as in a half in, half out, half middle, but said the Commons should pass the deal so that the public could have the chance to reject it and stay in the EU. Not surprisingly, both the Tory cabinet and Jeremy Corbyn hated this idea, because they both wanted to accept the 2016 referendum, and because each party would have been divided in a further referendum. In the case of the Tories, they would be split asunder, and in Labour's, the leadership cut adrift from the party's progressive base. So the die was cast. Instead of May's custom union-based compromise, the parties chose first deadlock. Then the Liberal Democrats, SNP and Corbyn opted for an early election to decide the matter. The rest is history, and has brought us to the point of a very hard Brexit, mitigated only by a bare-bones deal that could possibly help us over tariffs, but not all over the customs union and other frictions that will impede Britain's trade and supply chains. It's a sorry outcome, but unfortunately an inevitable one, given the political impoverished state of both main parties at the time and the inevitability of the People's Vote campaign to gain sufficient traction in the country. But while Labour can move on from Brexit, we cannot put Britain's future relationship with Europe behind us. The party's task now is to do everything possible to stop the country entering a period of national decline. The UK, having spent nearly half a century reshaping itself around the opportunities offered by European economic integration, has to scope out the next chapter in its national story. Government and private sector need to identify where the best possible exits to capitalise on our excellent science, research and technology base are. Remaining open to a global economy is another condition for success. This needs to start in our own home market, which I define as the UK and Europe. A future Labour government will need to rebuild our economic links to the EU, so to claw back the market opportunities and free flow of goods, services and capital that we are going to lose as a result of the Johnson Brexit deal. And we must maintain the union, albeit with a new political settlement that offers a fresh reason for the UK's nations to actually remain together, and rebalance investment, economic activity and social opportunity in England from south to north. There are more ingredients to a 21st century plan for Britain, including a recasting of work and the rights that go with it, and a modern welfare system to support it. The point, though, is this. Instead of fretting about how to best sign off on Johnson's miserable deal, Labour should now focus on how it can bring a sense of vision and purpose to where the country goes next, and for what it should do for people and their families when in government. There is a much better subject for Labour to start thinking over than falling out over the sorry end of this stage of the Brexit saga. And I completely agree. Labour do need to start thinking forward. And ultimately, I've said this before, all our paths do lead going back into the EU, because whoever sits in the future Prime Minister's chair will see the economic damage done by Brexit, and the only way to do that is to slowly make the steps back to rejoining the EU, step by step, and slowly but surely we will just slide back into the EU. History has a funny way of repeating itself, because that's exactly what happened to us last time. And that will be generally the truth. I do think he's right that we do need to start thinking about the bigger picture beyond Brexit. We do need to start thinking, what can we do? Where do we go? Because he is right. We can't escape Europe. The Brexiteers' lies about, oh, Europe will fall. Well, they've been saying that for the past 40 years, even longer than that. Europe isn't going anywhere. It's always going to remain on our doorstep. And like it or not, you have to deal with the EU. And that means you have to make compromises if you want access to their single market and customs union. Because those two things help British businesses more than anything else. So with that, thanks for watching. Please do remember to hit that like and share button, and of course please do remember to go down below and check out my Patreon page, as well as or buying me a coffee on the link down below as well. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.